My daughter's husband threw away my handmade dress at her baby shower. I sewed that dress for 4 months. Every night after my shift at St. Catherine's Hospital, after 12 hours of mopping floors, cleaning rooms, making sure strangers felt some kind of dignity in the hardest moments of their lives, I came home, sat under my kitchen lamp, and I sewed. It was a baby dress, small enough to fit in my 2 hands, white cotton with tiny yellow flowers I'd embroidered one by one along the hem. I wanted my granddaughter to wear it the moment she came into this world. Not something bought from a store, something made by the hands that had held her mother since the day she was born. I wrapped it in tissue paper, tied it with a yellow ribbon. My daughter Sarah held it up at her baby shower, looked at her mother-in-law across the room, and smiled the kind of smile that isn't really a smile. "Oh, Mom." She set it down on the table without unfolding it all the way. "You didn't have to do this." Her husband Cole laughed, not a warm laugh, the kind that comes from somewhere cold. "A homemade dress." He picked it up between 2 fingers like it was something he found on the street, from a hospital janitor. He looked around at the 60 guests sitting in that rented ballroom, and shook his head slowly. "Sarah, babe, I told you." He dropped it. Just dropped it right back on the table, like it was nothing. Like 4 months of my life were nothing. The room went quiet for exactly 1 second. Then someone laughed. Then someone else. Soft, polite laughter. The kind that tells you without a single word, you don't belong here. Sarah didn't look at me. She turned to the next gift. I sat there for a few more minutes. Nobody spoke to me. Cole's mother, Margaret, was whispering to a woman in pearls, both of them glancing in my direction. I caught the word janitor. I stood up. I walked to that table. I picked up the dress, slowly, carefully, folded it the way I fold everything I love, put it in my bag, and I walked out. I didn't cry. I stopped crying over my daughter's choices the day she stopped calling me Mom in front of Cole's family and started calling me Barbara. That night I drove home to my apartment in Louisville, Kentucky. Same apartment for 19 years, $750 a month, 1 bedroom, 1 window, 1 life that nobody in that ballroom would ever believe. I made myself tea, opened the closet in the hallway. Behind the coats bolted to the floor sat a fireproof safe I bought in 2005 because I decided early on, the only things worth keeping are the things you protect yourself. I unlocked it. Inside, 26 property deeds, stock records, a business portfolio going back 18 years, and 1 folder sitting right on top. I looked at the tab. The Grand Crestwood Ballroom, Louisville, Kentucky, purchased 2022. The venue where my daughter had just watched her husband drop my dress on a table and laugh. Every chair, every chandelier, every inch of that floor. Mine. Before we go on, have you ever made something with your own hands for someone you love and watched them treat it like it was worthless? Drop a comment below. I read every single one. And if you want to know what happened next, because Cole had no idea what was coming, let me tell you who I really am. My name is Barbara Elaine Mercer. I am 58 years old. I wake up every morning at 4:30. I put on my uniform. I drive to St. Catherine's Hospital. I mop floors, clean rooms, wipe down hallways. I have done this for 21 years, and I would do it for 21 more. Because there is nothing shameful about honest work, not a single thing. But that is not all I am. It started in 1999. My husband Ray died of a stroke at 43. No warning, no goodbye. He was here on a Tuesday and gone by Thursday. He left me Sarah, who was 7 years old, and $4,000 in a checking account. That was everything we had. I got the job at St. Catherine's because it had health insurance and I needed to keep Sarah covered. The pay was low, the hours were hard, but I showed up every single day because that little girl needed me to. 6 months after Ray died, I overheard 2 nurses talking about a foreclosed duplex on Maple Street. Bank was selling it for $41,000. Everyone said the neighborhood was too rough, the building too old, too much work. I bought it. I used every dollar Ray left me. I took a loan I probably shouldn't have qualified for. And then I spent every weekend for 8 months fixing that building myself. YouTube tutorials, library books. A retired contractor named Mr. Willis at the hardware store who answered my questions for free if I bought my supplies from him. I learned plumbing, drywall, electrical, flooring. Sarah sat on the floor with her coloring books while I replaced pipes. I rented both units. The rent covered my mortgage. 3 years later, I bought a second property, then a third. Every extra dollar went straight into the next building. I never took a vacation. Never bought new clothes unless the old ones wore out. Never ate at a restaurant that had cloth napkins. By 2010, I owned 9 properties. By 2020, 22. I never raised my tenants' rent during COVID. Some couldn't pay at all. I let them stay. A few of those families are still in my buildings today, paying the same rate they paid in 2019. Today, the portfolio sits at 26 properties across Kentucky and Tennessee. Estimated value, $19 million. Annual income after expenses, just over $1 million. And I still show up to St. Catherine's every morning at 4:30. I never told Sarah, because Ray and I both believed the same thing. You don't hand your children a life. You teach them how to build one. I wanted her to develop character, patience, gratitude. Instead, she married Cole Harrington. Cole's family had money the way some families have furniture, inherited everywhere, taken completely for granted. His father ran Harrington Capital, a private investment firm in Nashville. Cole worked there managing client accounts. He wore clothes that cost more than my monthly grocery bill, and spoke to people like he was doing them a favor by being in the same room. I noticed things from the beginning. The way he never said thank you. The way he spoke over Sarah at dinner. The way he looked at me. Not with rudeness exactly, but with a kind of blank dismissal. Like I was part of the background. Like I was furniture. But what I noticed most was Sarah. The way she flinched sometimes when he raised his voice. The way she checked his face before she answered a question, even a simple one, even from me. The way she laughed too quickly at things that weren't funny, like she was trying to keep the temperature in the room just right. I had seen that kind of careful, exhausting behavior before. In women at the hospital who came in with accidents. In neighbors growing up who always had a reason for the bruises. My daughter wasn't clumsy, she was afraid. The baby shower just confirmed what I already knew. A man who would humiliate his wife's mother in front of 60 people, laughing, performing, making the room feel like it was in on the joke. That same man does not become gentle when the doors close and there's nobody watching. I drove home that night. I opened the safe. I looked at those 26 property deeds for a long time. Then I picked up my phone and called the one person I trusted completely. Carol, I said, I need a favor. Carol Simmons had been my neighbor for 14 years. Before that, she spent 20 years as a family court investigator in Jefferson County. She knew things about people that people didn't know about themselves. What kind of favor, she asked. I need you to find out who Cole Harrington really is. There was a pause. Barbara, her voice was quiet. How bad do you think it is? I looked at the dress still folded in my bag. The white cotton, the tiny yellow flowers I'd sewn one by one. Bad enough, I said. Still with me? If you've ever watched someone you love slowly disappear inside a marriage, you know exactly what Barbara was feeling right now. Comment below and stay, because what Carol found changed everything. Carol called me 9 days later. I was in the middle of my shift, mopping the hallway outside room 14. A man inside was recovering from surgery. His wife sat beside him, holding his hand, not saying a word, just holding it. My phone buzzed in my pocket. Carol. I set the mop against the wall and stepped into the stairwell. Barbara. Her voice was the voice she used when things were serious. Flat, careful. I need you to sit down. I was standing in a stairwell. Then lean against something. I leaned against the cold concrete wall and listened. Cole Harrington had been engaged before Sarah. A woman named Jess Fowler. They dated for 2 years, got engaged, and 6 months before the wedding, Jess called it off. Carol tracked her down. Jess agreed to talk. She talked for 40 minutes. It started small, Jess said. Little comments. About her clothes, about her friends, about the way she laughed too loudly at dinner. Nothing you could point to and say, that's abuse. Just a slow, steady pressure. Like someone turning down the volume on who you are, one click at a time. Until one day you look in the mirror and you don't recognize yourself. Then came the isolation. First, her friends stopped being invited when Cole was around. Then family dinners became uncomfortable. Then Jess found herself apologizing to Cole for spending an afternoon with her own mother. Apologizing for seeing her mother. When Jess finally ended it, Cole told her she was ungrateful, that no one else would ever love someone like her, that she was lucky he had stayed as long as he did. She believed him. For 2 years after, she believed him. Carol also found something else. A police report. Filed 18 months ago. A neighbor of Cole and Sarah's had called 911 after hearing shouting. Officers arrived. Sarah told them everything was fine. Cole stood beside her with his hand on her shoulder while she said it. The report was filed and closed. No charges, no follow-up. I stood in that stairwell for a long time after Carol stopped talking. Barbara. Carol's voice was gentle now. Sarah is 8 months pregnant and living with this man. I know. Do you have a plan? I thought about the baby shower. About Sarah setting that dress down without unfolding it all the way. About the way she had looked at Cole before she did it. Checking his face. Making sure she was doing the right thing. Making sure she was safe. My daughter wasn't embarrassed by my gift. She was afraid of what he would say if she wasn't. That realization sat inside my chest like a stone. Yes, I said. I have a plan. That evening I called my attorney, David Park. I'd worked with David since 2006. He was 60 now, quiet, precise, the kind of man who listened twice before he spoke once. I need 2 things, I told him. First, I want to put together a full documentation package. Everything Carol found, the police report, Jess Fowler's account, everything. And second, I want to transfer the Grand Crestwood Ballroom out of the LLC and into my name directly. David paused. That's a significant asset, Barbara. May I ask why? Because Cole Harrington's firm holds their annual client gala there every year. Has for the last 4 years. This November will be the 5th. And you want to be there. I want to own the room he's standing in when he finds out who I am. David was quiet for a moment. Then, and this was rare for David, he laughed. Just once. Short and quiet. I'll have the paperwork ready by Friday, he said. The next morning I went back to St. Catherine's. Put on my uniform. Picked up my mop. Said good morning to the nurses I'd known for 15 years, to the security guard named Pete, who always saved me a coffee, to the elderly man in room 22, who called me young lady, even though I was nearly 60. I did my job, the same job I had always done. But that evening, I called Sarah. She picked up on the 3rd ring. Her voice was careful, measured, the voice of someone who had learned to take up less space. Mom, hi. Hi, sweetheart. I kept my voice easy. How are you feeling? Good. Tired. The baby's been moving a lot. That's good. That means she's strong. A pause. Mom, about the shower, the dress, I'm sorry if... Sarah, I stopped her gently. I didn't call about the dress.
Then why did you call? I looked at the baby dress sitting on my kitchen table.
White cotton. Tiny yellow flowers. 4 months of my life in my 2 hands. I called because I love you, I said, and because I need you to know, whatever happens next, I am always, always on your side. She went quiet, and in that quiet, I heard something I hadn't heard from my daughter in a very long time. She cried. Not polite crying, not careful crying, the kind that comes from somewhere so deep and so tired that it has no shape anymore. Just release. Just grief. Just a woman who had been holding herself together for so long that the smallest kindness broke her open. I let her cry. I didn't rush her. I didn't fix it. I just stayed on the line. Because sometimes that is the only thing a mother can do. And sometimes it is enough. If you've ever had to stay strong for someone you love while your own heart was breaking, you know exactly where Barbara is right now. And stay. Because in part 4, Cole Harrington is about to walk into a room he thinks he owns. He has no idea.
The Harrington Capital Annual Gala was held every November. Black tie, open bar, 200 guests, clients, partners, people with enough money that they stopped counting it a long time ago. Cole's father, Richard Harrington, gave a speech every year about legacy and trust and the kind of integrity that only old money believes it has. They had held it at the Grand Crestwood Ballroom for 4 consecutive years. I arrived at 6 o'clock, 2 hours before the guests. I wore a navy dress I had bought 30 years ago for Ray's company Christmas party. Simple, clean, nothing that cost more than it needed to. I walked through the front entrance of my building, because that is what it was, my building, and I nodded to the staff I had known for 2 years. Mrs. Mercer. The venue manager, a young woman named Claire, shook my hand. Everything is ready. Thank you, Claire. I walked through the ballroom slowly. The chandeliers were lit, the tables were set, flowers everywhere, white and gold, Cole's mother's choice. 200 chairs arranged in perfect rows for a family that had spent 4 years looking through me like I was glass. I sat at a small table near the back and waited. Sarah arrived at 7:30. I had called her the week before and asked her to come early. I hadn't told her why. I had only said, I need you there, and I need you to trust me. She walked in slowly, 9 months pregnant now, one hand on her lower back. She looked tired. She looked like a woman who had been tired for a long time. She saw me and stopped. Mom. She looked around the ballroom. What is this? Why are you here? Cole is going to... Sit down, sweetheart. She sat. I took her hands in mine. I need to tell you some things, I said, and I need you to let me finish before you say anything. Her eyes were already filling. I told her everything. Carol's investigation, Jess Fowler, the 2 years of slow erosion, the isolation, the police report from 18 months ago, the one where she had stood beside Cole and told the officers everything was fine, while his hand sat on her shoulder like a warning. Sarah didn't speak. She sat completely still. One hand moved to her stomach without her seeming to notice. When I finished, the room was quiet. He loves me, she whispered, but it came out like a question. I know you believe that. I held her hands tighter. But Sarah, a man who loves you does not make you afraid to like a gift your mother gave you. She closed her eyes. I didn't know you knew. I'm your mother, I said. I have always known. The doors opened at 8 o'clock. Guests began to arrive, the room filled with the sound of expensive shoes on marble floors and the particular laughter of people who have never had to worry about anything. Cole arrived at 8:15 with his father. He was laughing at something Richard had said, relaxed, comfortable, a man completely at home in a room he had rented for $15,000 a night for 4 years running, without once asking whose name was on the deed. He saw Sarah first. His expression shifted, just slightly, a flicker of irritation. She was supposed to be at the table near the front, not back here, not next to. Then he saw me. The laugh stopped. Barbara. He said my name the way you say something you stepped on. What are you doing here? I own this building, Cole. I say. I'm sorry? The Grand Crestwood Ballroom. I purchased it in 2022 through my LLC. You have been renting it from me for 2 years without knowing it. I kept my voice completely calm. I thought tonight, you should know. Richard Harrington had gone still beside his son. Cole's jaw tightened. That's not possible. You're a janitor. I nodded. I am. I'm also the owner of 26 properties across Kentucky and Tennessee. Total value, $19 million. I paused. I have mopped floors at St. Catherine's for 21 years. I am very good at my job. I am also very good at this one. The people nearest to us had gone quiet. The silence spread outward through the room like a ripple. Cole looked at Sarah. His voice dropped, low, the voice he used when nobody was supposed to hear. Sarah, tell your mother to leave. Sarah looked at him for a long moment. Then she stood up. She stood up slowly, one hand on the table for balance, 9 months pregnant, and she looked at her husband with an expression I had not seen on my daughter's face in 3 years. Clarity. No, she said. One word, quiet, steady, like something that had been waiting a long time to be said. Cole took a step toward her. Sarah, there is a police report, I said. Loud enough now. Loud enough for the people nearby to hear. Filed 18 months ago at this couple's home address. Officers were called by a neighbor. My daughter told them everything was fine. I looked directly at Cole. She was not fine. Richard Harrington put a hand on his son's arm. Cole shook it off. You have no idea what you're talking about. His voice was rising now. The careful, easy smile was completely gone. You are a hospital janitor. You clean floors for a living. You don't get to come into your event. I looked around the ballroom. The chandeliers, the marble, the flowers. In my building. You are welcome to leave anytime you like, Cole. Or I can call building security. They work for me. The room was completely silent now. 200 people, not a sound. Cole looked at his father. Richard was not looking back at him. Richard was looking at me with an expression I had not expected. Shame. Not for me, for his son. Richard, my voice was quieter now. Your son has been systematically isolating and controlling my daughter for 3 years. I have documentation. I have a witness. And I have a family court attorney on call who has been waiting for Sarah to be ready. I paused. I believe she is ready now. I looked at Sarah. She was still standing, still steady, tears running down her face, but her chin up. Mom, she said softly, I'm ready. If you stayed this long, comment the word strong below, because that is exactly what Sarah was, and what her mother had been for 21 years. Part 5 is the ending, and I promise you, it is worth it.
Cole left the ballroom that night without another word. Not because I asked him to, not because his father told him to, but because for the first time in 3 years, there was no version of the room that was on his side. No polite laughter, no quiet looks away, no one willing to pretend they hadn't heard. 200 people watched him walk out. Richard Harrington stayed. He sat down across from me at that small table near the back, and he was quiet for a long time. Then he said, I didn't know. And I believed him. Not because rich fathers are always innocent, but because the shame on his face was real. And real shame is something you can't perform. Your son needs help, I told him. Not protection. Help. He nodded slowly. I'll see to it. I don't know if he did. That part was never mine to control. What I could control was Sarah. She moved into one of my buildings on Elm Street 3 days later. 2nd floor, 2 bedrooms, a little balcony that got morning light. I had kept it vacant for 6 months without fully understanding why. Now I understood. I had been keeping it for her. Her daughter was born on a Tuesday morning in December. 6 pounds 4 ounces, a full head of dark hair. The most serious expression I had ever seen on a newborn, like she had arrived with opinions and intended to share them. Sarah named her Ray, after her father. When the nurse put that baby in my arms for the first time, I stood very still. I didn't trust myself to move. I just looked at her. This small, serious, perfect person, and I thought about the yellow baby blanket I had made, the tiny flowers along the hem. 4 months of my life in my 2 hands. I thought about Cole dropping it on that table. And I thought, he did not win. He never came close to winning. Because the thing he dropped was never just a dress. And promises made by mothers do not break when careless men drop them. They hold. Little Ray came home from the hospital wearing that dress. Sarah had asked me for it the night before the delivery. She called me at 11 o'clock, voice quiet, and said, "Mom, the dress, can you bring it tomorrow?" I had kept it in my dresser drawer, folded in tissue paper, right where I put it the night I walked out of that baby shower. "I'll bring it," I said, and I did. Ray Mercer came into this world wearing white cotton and tiny yellow flowers, hand-sewn one by a woman who mopped hospital floors for 21 years and built $19 million in her spare time, and never once thought she was anything special for doing it. Just a mother, doing what mothers do, showing up. Sarah started working with my property manager 6 months after Ray was born. Entry level. Answering phones, learning the paperwork, learning the business the same way I learned it, slowly, carefully, with her whole attention on it. She never complained, not once. She brought Ray to the office in a little carrier on her chest, and answered phones and filed documents and asked questions and made mistakes and learned from them. One evening she called me after her shift. "Mom." Her voice was different now, fuller, like someone who had remembered how to breathe. "I keep thinking about what you built. You did all of this, the properties, everything, while working full-time, while raising me alone. How did you do it?" I thought about Ray, about the $4,000, about the duplex on Maple Street, and Mr. Willis at the hardware store, and the library books on plumbing. "I just kept showing up," I said. "Every day, that's all building is, showing up." She was quiet for a moment. "I wasted so much time," she said softly. "You survived something hard. That is not wasted time. That is the foundation." Another silence. Then, "I love you, Mom." "I love you too, sweetheart." I still work at St. Catherine's, every morning at 4:30. Uniform on, mop in hand. Good morning to Pete at the security desk. Coffee saved. Elderly man in room 22 calling me young lady. I could retire. I could move somewhere warm. I could buy the kind of house that has a name instead of an address. But this job is not beneath me. It never was. It is part of me. The same part that fixed pipes in a duplex at 37 years old, with a 7-year-old on the floor beside me. The same part that sat under a kitchen lamp every night for 4 months, sewing tiny yellow flowers onto white cotton. The same part that walked out of a ballroom with a folded dress in my bag and did not cry in the parking lot. People looked at me for 21 years and saw a janitor. They saw a uniform and a mop and made a story up about who I was and what I deserved. They were wrong, not because I had money, but because no honest work makes you less, not one single hour of it. My granddaughter is 14 months old now. She walks, more like controlled falling really, across my apartment floor every Sunday morning while Sarah drinks coffee at my kitchen table, and I make pancakes, and the three of us exist in the particular piece of people who have come through something hard and found each other on the other side. The dress hangs on the wall of Ray's bedroom now, framed behind glass. Sarah did it herself. Underneath it, she put a small card in her own handwriting. It says, "Made with love, by the strongest woman I know." I saw it for the first time on a Sunday. I stood in that doorway for a long time. The morning light came through the window the way it does in December, low and golden and quiet. I didn't cry in the parking lot that night at the baby shower. I cried in my granddaughter's bedroom on a Sunday morning in December. The good kind. The kind that means something was lost, and then, slowly, carefully, stitch by stitch, found again. To anyone watching this right now, if someone has ever looked at your job, your clothes, your neighborhood, and decided that means something about your worth, I want you to hear this clearly. They were wrong. They are wrong. They will always be wrong. Your value is not in your title. It is in what you do with the hours you are given. And every honest hour counts, every single one. If this story meant something to you, share it with someone who needs to hear it today. Subscribe if you want more stories like this one. And drop a comment telling me, what would you have done in Barbara's place? Some details in this story have been fictionalized for storytelling, but the heart of it, the lesson, that is completely real. God bless you. And remember, it was never just a dress.